Marinaro, the Sick Podcasting conversation with Laval Rocket goalie Jacob Fowler. Jacob, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're taping this interview just past 1 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. I'm a lot happier that we're doing it now than doing it on Wednesday night right after the game, because obviously we all saw what happened on Wednesday night in that game versus the Syracuse Crunch. Clearly, you weren't happy with the second goal. Have you had a chance to digest it, or you never really get over those things?
I mean, it's an emotional game. I think if you let my temper flare a little bit there, I try to stay calm, and I usually don't get too riled up like there. It's stuff I can't control. But yeah, I wasn't obviously happy with it. You never like to get scored on, and just one of those plays that you got to learn from in your career and build off of. So something like that happens again, you give yourself a better chance and maybe do things differently.
When you're in a game and you want to stay as focused as possible, when something like that happens where obviously you're rattled because you don't agree with the decision, are there things that you have to do to make sure that you get back down and start focusing again, or does it affect the rest of your game?
I mean, it's a good question. I think as much as you want to, bring your heart rate back down to almost resting, it's hard. You want to keep in that kind of fight or flight mode. And, I wouldn't say I like to be too fired up like that, but I will say it gets you pretty locked into the game that, it becomes more personal at that point, whenever you're starting to get hit a little bit more and, maybe tempers are starting to rise, you're more focused and, it felt more like a playoff game. So just get a sip of water, do a little bit of breathing and just, I always tell myself, just go back to work, do your job. And that's pretty much it.
Great start of the season for you, of course, a record of 6-4, 221, 921 save percentage. You got 3 shutouts thus far this season. Did you go into the season with certain goals in terms of wins, goals against average, save percentage?
I wouldn't say those were the goals I had. Obviously, I think that stuff kind of follows when it comes to doing the right things. What you put in is what you're going to get out. I think those were the more goals that I had was I knew it was going to be a learning curve. I learned a little bit when I came for that short period last year. And for me, it was more just trying to build my game. Pro habits, being able to perform my best on a nightly basis is something that I want to get to because, I just want to become the best version of myself. And I think if I stay on the track that I'm on, then I have a good chance of doing that.
What's the biggest adjustment you had to make from college hockey in Boston College to the American Hockey League and the Laval Rocket?
I think BC prepared me really well for pro hockey. We had a staff that had spent a lot of time in the professional leagues and had experience. So, I think it wasn't as crazy of a jump as, maybe under 18 to junior. But I think the biggest thing is just the pace is always going to be a little bit faster. I think even that short period I got to play in the NHL preseason, you see an even quicker pace up there that you always want to be ahead of the play. You don't want to just be on par. You want to be ahead and you want to be beating every play. So just respecting how quick the game can turn and you can't cheat the game. That's about it.
So you go from Boston College where you have a goalie coach, then you go to Laval, you have Marco Marciano. You go to Montreal for pro camp. They have a different goalie coach there. I'm wondering, is there an adjustment that needs to take place for you from going from goalie coach to goalie coach to goalie coach, or do you just kind of like stay the same?
I mean, I've been very fortunate. I mean, even since, I was in prep school, everywhere I've gone, we've had goalie coaching. I've been super fortunate to have somebody has great knowledge, but also like a mentor for me. And it's been no different, leaving school and with the Habs and also here. I have a great relationship with all of them. I think I'm a very open-minded, not just person, but player. And, I think at the end of the day, X's and O's out the door. It's all about habits and reads, and there's only so many ways you can stop a puck, right? Like it's not easy to do, but everything kind of correlates with one another with the different stuff that they're teaching.
You've left a very good impression everywhere you've gone, obviously, and won pretty much at every level. And we hope that you'll do the same with the Laval Rocket and eventually with the Montreal Canadiens. You talked about pro camp, you went to it, and you talked about the speed of the game and the pace. Besides that being an eye-opener, was there something else that you realized when you're at pro camp and say, okay, this is the show, and now I understand?
I don't know if I'd say it in that standpoint. I think um, I always think I've been kind of a younger personality. Like I always enjoy to have a laugh or be smiling around the rink, and I think I've grown up loving the game so much that for me, one of the hardest things is I don't want to use the word starstruck, but it's hard to kind of put that aside and know that you're competing against these guys. Like go out on the ice in Toronto for that last preseason game I was a part of. Not even planned, but you look across the ice and you see the guys that even just a few months ago I was watching on TV, and now it feels real. You want to be there and you want to be stopping those guys' shots. So I don't want to say that was an eye opener, but that was one of those moments where you kind of can take a deep breath and look around and kind of appreciate everything that had gotten you to that point, and then it's just game on.
I would imagine you're alluding to Matthews, maybe Tavares, William Nylander. By the way, Nylander pretty sick goal the other night, eh?
Yeah, I saw that. Those guys, and you don't want to be watching too much of that warm up, but when you see Tavares and Nylander on the other side of the ice, you know they're some of the best in the world.
You're a student of the game. We've seen that. We've seen videos before. You can tell, basically, you can tell us who shoots left, who shoots right, whether they have tape, what are their tendencies. So obviously you watch a lot of tape, but I'm wondering, do you watch a lot of hockey when you're not playing hockey?
I do probably. I don't want to say too much, but um, I just I've always liked watching hockey. My dad always would subscribe to all the NHL kind of services that any condensed games or recaps. It was always at the click of a button for me, and I never looked at it as watching film as much as I always liked watching the best players, have good nights, and you always love watching the highlights, whether it's nice goals or big saves. You want to watch what makes the game so great. I think that's why I grew up loving it so much, and I still play forward and goalie all the time, even in the summers, just because for me, getting away from the game, so to say, is just being around it even more. I just that brings me comfort, and that's brought me joy my whole life, and fortunate for what the game's given me to this point.
Do you think that's something that can continue even when eventually you make your way to Montreal? We talk about all the pressure and all the expectations and the fact that it could be suffocating at times and you probably need to step away. You intend to continue that same way, and you believe that the way you've been molded and the way you've gone about things and your approach can lead to success even in Montreal in a very pressure packed environment?
I mean, obviously, I gotta continue to be where my feet are right now, and enjoy the process of getting better. But I think I've always been a kid that the more I can be around the rink and be around the game is what I'm happiest. I think
Yeah.
guys like time off in the summer, but I think waiting around for the season to start is one of the worst feelings. For me, it was always I hated losing or when the season would finish, because then it was just waiting for your next year to start, and you're just in that constant mode of working, 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 not getting to play. And um, you're always going to watch the highlights, even here whenever you're eating breakfast in the morning or go home. You're always going to be around the game, especially in a market like Montreal. And um, I think I've grown to enjoy that even more since I've been here. When I got to see their support when the Habs went on that run at the end of the year to get into the playoffs, and when they did, to see the support of the fans and everyone around the city, like it actually blows my mind to see
Yeah.
how much people care and enjoy the game. And being able to go to a couple playoff games last year it gives you goosebumps. It's a special place to play hockey, and
Yeah.
to be around people that enjoy the game the same way I always have. It's there's not very many places in the league and hockey in general that are like it.
And it's a special place to play hockey at Place Bell in Laval as well, because I would imagine making your way around the other arenas in the American Hockey League, there's not too many places like Place Bell in Laval either. You have a couple of huge games coming up on the weekend, on Friday night and on Saturday afternoon versus the Belleville Senators. You're at the top of your division. They have one win less than the Laval Rocket. Two huge games coming up. But talk to me about playing in front of the fans in Laval.
I mean, again, it's actually crazy. Like it's hard to really put it into words. That playoff run that we were on last year,
Yeah.
in Game 5 at home against Rochester, even the opening round that we had against Cleveland. I mean, it's wild. Every night here it feels like I've only played a couple nights at the Bell Center, but for me, it feels similar just without another couple decks up top. The people here, they love the game. They're in the game. They know when something good or bad happens, and you know, you love playing for your home support. And I think our team feeds off that. Last night obviously didn't go the way we'd intended, but I think we've been a dangerous team to play when we're at home all year, and I think we've brought that momentum on the road for the first couple weeks of the year, and I think that's something we want to keep building off of because, again, like you said, you can't take that for granted, especially in the American League where there's some nights it's hard to even find somebody in the stands when here it's you know it's
10,000.
always it's hard, like it's super special to play here.
You and your teammates have a few things in common. Obviously, you want to win games for the Laval Rocket. You want to win a championship, and you all want to play in the National Hockey League one day. Talk to me about how you guys push each other. And, for example, a couple of defensemen that play on your team, Adam Engstrom, David Reinbacher. Like, do you guys lean on each other, or are you kind of like different because you're a goalie? How does that work?
I mean, I definitely think it's different for me. I can be a guy that's, I don't want to say tighter with every guy in the room, but none of them are goalies. It's just me and
Yeah.
Capo on the back end. So I'd say for me, I've always been a guy that forwards and D can always gravitate to. Whether they want to come to me and just whatever they have going on, it's easier for them to say something to a goalie than a guy that they're either playing with or had been playing with all night. So it's fun to be around these guys. We have a young group, lots of prospects. Like you're super happy whenever you see guys go up and are doing well. And I think the guys that are here right now, it's more of the message of you're not the only guy that's a young prospect on an entry level deal. You don't want to be the guy that's not holding up your end of the bargain or, not performing the way you should be away from the rink or in practice days. So I think we all keep that competitive juice of, I want to stop every guy. They want to score on me sometimes more than they think. And it's just fun. I think when guys bring that intensity every day, it's kind of addicting to want to keep coming and getting better. And I think everybody kind of gets better throughout that process.
I talked to you about the pressure before, and I talked to you about the expectations. You probably heard enough of it, but like as well as I do, and I'm sure you've seen a couple of reels on social media. People have been talking about Jacob Fowler for a couple of years now, and obviously how highly they think of you. And we hear franchise goalie, and we hear a lot of things, and we hear you compared to several greats of the past. Does that make the pressure even more so, or does that get you pretty excited about what people feel about your ability, and does it kind of like push you even more?
I mean, it's really hard to put it into words. I think less of a mental look at it. It's more of just to even sometimes see your name in that category, you kind of almost laugh a bit because, again, those are guys that not just that I've looked up to, but everybody in the game of hockey, knows how good they were and what they've done for the game. And for me, it's just nobody's going to put more expectations or more pressure on anyone than myself. And for me, it's just trying to live up to be the best version of myself that I can. And I think that's what I'm chasing on a daily basis. I think the results come from that. Your process of what you do every single day, what no one sees during the summer. I think that's what really makes guys, separate themselves. And for me, I'm a young guy. I turned 21 here pretty soon. For me, it's just doing the right things on a daily basis that all these habits can build that, year after year, game after game, I can keep building my game to be who I think I can be. And I think it's pretty exciting.
Jacob, very much appreciate your time. I won't take too much of it, but before I let you go, a lot of fans love to be, they would love to be in the world of these professional athletes. Can you talk about what a typical day will be, is like for you, and how much do you prepare mentally? Here Jakob Dobesh does a lot of visualization during the breaks. He doesn't even go to the bench. He skates around a little bit and he's visualizing, and obviously he works with people that help him in that regard. The mental part of the game and away from the game, what do you work on, and what's a typical day like for you?
I mean, practice days, I have a roommate on the team. I live with Tyler Thorpe, so him and I wake up pretty early. We commute together to the rink every morning, and
You got a
we're usually
bodyguard. That's good. He's a good bodyguard. He's a big boy.
he's the best. We have a good dynamic at home, but usually at the rink anywhere from 7:45 to who knows, like 1:30 ish, and anything between a morning workout video from either the day before who we're playing and a team practice and some recovery. So that's usually what a day looks like. But I'd say more mentally, more than anything, as I've got older, I think I've understood the importance of being present and, not living in the future or the past, just enjoying each moment as it's happening. And I think I've learned to accept that some things aren't going to go your way. Nobody would want to watch the game of hockey if a goalie was going to have a shutout every single game. Like part of what makes the game fun is that nobody can be perfect. And for me, I know that. And, that kind of goal of stop every shot is something that keeps me going. The day I can stop every single shot, I think I've mastered the game. I think that's when I can be done. But until that point, it's staying on the path that mentally and physically you want to do everything you can, that you can stop every puck, and knowing you're not going to. That's kind of what gives the game beauty, and what makes goalies crazy, so to say.
It's fun, I guess, that the other goalie on the team, Capo Kakinen, you talked about him, has played some games in the National Hockey League. That's some pretty invaluable experience that I'm sure that he's passed along your way.
He's been great. He's treated me super well. Been fortunate to be a young goalie in pro hockey with the veterans that I've had in front of me, and he's great. Whenever I ask what he would have done or how he reads certain plays in the game, or even stuff of what's he bringing on the road for hydration or fuel, just things like that, that a veteran guy that's been in the National League and been here, he understands how to play the game. Obviously got to play against him a little bit in Charlotte last year and see what he looks like at the top of his game. And I think we compete against each other pretty well in practice. And I think he enjoys kind of the youthfulness that I bring to having fun and bringing smiles to the ice every day.
And I know everyone enjoys watching you guys play. A couple of big games once again on Friday night at Place Bell and on Saturday afternoon versus the Belleville Senators. And we'll be broadcasting the games right here, Sick Media, the Sick Podcast. We are the French digital audio voice of all Laval Rocket home games. Jacob Fowler, it's been fun to watch you play, and we look forward to watching you play the rest of the season. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
All the best to you. Take care.